Peace, Centavo. How you doing? Peace, 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 peace. All right. I'm back again. So I hope you guys enjoyed the previous video that I did with Professor Ace, the brother who wrote the African Creation Energy. I hope you guys enjoyed that video as much as I did. But tonight I'm back, and this time I'm dealing with Black history. So, and we're gonna take it to the Cowboys, the Wild Wild West. Oh yeah, and this person that I'm going to be speaking of is not Bass Reeves. I know people have heard about him and whatnot. This individual, his name was Nat Love, or he sometimes went by Nate Love. But, why don't you hear much about African Americans cowboys? Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Wild Wild West movie. I did when I was growing up. When you saw those classical movies, you see the bunch of cowboys and cowgirls going at it with each other, whatnot. Most of them were white. You didn't really see anybody that was African descended or any depiction of African people, right? But they were around, okay? And this man was a true cowboy at that. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Nat Love. So who was he? All right, so I'm going to be presenting some sources from, of course, the WikiOne, and also I have autobiography from Nat Love as well. He wrote a book about his life and his journey as a cowboy and a former slave. Okay, as you can see, that's the article. Go ahead and get started. And this right here, is Nat Love. As you can see, he got his little pose, standing there looking like he the best thing smoking since sliced bread. You know what I'm saying? He's standing there. I bet you he was a ladies' man too. But that's either here or there. Anyways, Nat Love was an African American cowboy and former slave in the period following the African American Civil War. His exploits have made him one of the most famous Black heroes of Old West. And you might wonder, well, what is the Old West? So the Old West, let's take it. I was saying the little Nas X song, but I'm very disappointed in him as of right now. All right, so the Old West, the American frontier, or the Wild West, includes the geography, history, and folklore and culture in the forward wave of American expansion that began with European colonial settlements in the early 17th century and ended with the admission of the last few Western territories as states in 1912. This era of massive migration and settlement was particularly encouraged by President Thomas Jefferson following the Louisiana Purchase, giving rise to the expansionist attitude known as manifest destiny and the historian's frontier thesis. The legends, historical evidence, and folklore of the American frontier have embedded themselves into United States culture so much that the Old West and the Western genre of media specifically has become one of the defining tenets and prides of American national identity. All right. So when we think about the Old West, right? We think about Texas. We think about the Midwest. We think about the West Coast. All of that, right? Yeah. Basically, that's the Old West. But let's go ahead and let's get to the biography. So Love was born enslaved on the plantation of Robert Love in Davidson County, Tennessee, around 1854. His father was a slave foreman on the plantation field, and his mother, the manager of its kitchen. Love had two siblings, an older sister, Sally, and an older brother, Jordan. Despite slavery era statutes that outlawed black literacy, he learned to read and write as a child with the help of his father, Samson. When slavery ended, Love's parents stayed on the Love plantation as sharecroppers, attempting to raise tobacco and corn on about 20 acres. But Sampson died shortly after the second crop was planted. Afterward, Nat took a second job working on a local farm to help make ends meet. At about this time, he was noted as having a gift for breaking horses. After some time of working extra odd jobs in the area, he won a horse in a raffle on two occasions, when he then sold back to the owner for $50 each time. He used the money to leave town and at the age of 16 headed west. All right. So as you can see, he was born in Davidson County, Tennessee, born into slavery. But once he got his freedom, well, actually, his parents, they actually, when slavery had ended, during that time, they became the sharecroppers. And once they became the sharecroppers, right, that's when he got into loving horses and becoming a cowboy. All right, so here is life as a cowboy. Love traveled to Dodge City, Kansas, where he found work as a cowboy with cattle drivers from the Duval Ranch located on the Palo Duro River in the Texas Panhandle. According to his autobiography, Love fought cattle rustlers and endured inclement weather. He trained himself to become an expert marksman and cowboy, for which he earned from his co-workers the moniker Red River Dick. In 1872, Love moved to Arizona, where he found work at the Gallinger Ranch located along the Gala River. He wrote in his autobiography that while working the cattle drives in Arizona, he met Pat Garrett, Bat Masterson, Billy the Kid, and others. Deadwood Dick. After driving a herd of cattle to the railhead in Deadwood, Dakota Territory, he entered a rodeo on the 4th of July in 1876. Enticed by the $200 prize money, he won the rope, throw, tie, bridle, saddle, and bronco riding contest. It was at this rodeo that he claims friends and fans gave him the nickname Deadwood Dick, a reference to a literary character created by Edward Linton Willer, a dying novelist of the day. Capture and escape. In October 1877, Love writes that he was captured by a band of Pima Indians while rounding up stray cattle near the Gala River in Arizona. Although he claimed to have received over 14 bullet wounds in his career, with several received in his fight with the Native Americans while trying to avoid capture. Love wrote that his life was spared because the Indians respected his heritage. A large portion of the band themselves being of mixed blood, he almost married the chief's daughter. The band of Native Americans nursed him back to health, wishing to adopt him into the tribe. Eventually, Love writes he stole a pony and escaped into West Texas. Mount on my horse, my lariat near my hand, and my trusty guns in my belt. I felt like I could defy the world. So he went to good old Texas, down there in the good old Texas. Life after being a cowboy. Love decided he needed to leave the cowboy life. He married his wife Alice in 1889 and settled down, initially in Denver, taking a job in 1890 as a Pullman porter, which involved overseeing sleeping cars on the Denver and Rodeo Grande Railroad. While working for the railroad, he and his family resided in several western states before finally moving to Southern California. In 1907, Love published his autobiography entitled Life and Adventures of Nat Love, better known in the cattle country as Deadwood Dick by himself, which greatly enhanced his legacy. Love spent the latter part of his life as a courier and guard for a Los Angeles security company. He died there in 1921 at the age of 67. So, in pop culture, how is he represented in literature? Joe R. Lansdale used love in the novelist Nine Hide and Horns, which was published in the anthology Subterranean Online, and Sojourn, which was published in the anthology Warriors, in the novella Black Hat Jack 2014, and the novel Paradise Sky in 2015. And of course, there's the comics that came out in 2012. A graphic novel was published about Nat Love, Best Shot in the West by Patricia and Frederick McCaskill and Randy Duberk. And then in the television film, The Cherokee Kid, 1996, Nat Love is portrayed by Ernie Hurston, and They Died by Dawn in 2013. Love is portrayed by Michael K. Williams. Living History in Love on the Range, a first-person interpretation program at the Smithsonian Museum. Nat Love is played by Xavier Carnegie. All right. So let's go ahead and let's go into the autobiography real fast. So let's go to the accounts that he gives about his life. Love must be on the brain. Okay, I don't have a singing voice. Love must be on the brain. Y'all know that song by Rihanna. Love must be on the brain. All right. So, chapter 1. And as a matter of fact, let me show you guys the title of the book first and foremost. It's called The Life and Adventures of Nat Love, better known in the cattle country as Deadwood Dick by himself. Okay, and it was published in 1907. It says a true history of slavery days, life on the great cattle range and on the plains of the wild and woodly West, based on facts and personal experiences of the author. Okay, so he said he dedicated this book to his wife, Alice Love. All right. Here are the table of contents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the first chapter. Then I'm going to skip to I'm gonna look at the first chapter, and then I'm gonna look at the second chapter. All right, so the first chapter, Slavery Days, the Old Plantation, my early foraging, the stolen demijohn, my first drink, the curse of slavery. In an old log cabin on my master's plantation in Davidson County in Tennessee in June of 1854, I saw the light of day. The exact date of my birth I never knew, because in those days no counts was kept of such trivial matters as the birth of a baby slave. They were born and died, and the accounts was balanced in the gains and losses of the master's chattels, and one more or less did not matter much one way or another. My father and mother were owned by Robert Love, an extensive planters and the owner of many slaves. He was in his way and in comparison with many other slave owners of those days, a kind and indulgent master. All right. And he goes on to say, one day when master and the family went to town, mother decided to make some wine of which was very fond. Accordingly, she gathered some grapes and after pressing them, she made some very fairly good wine. This this she placed in a demijohn, and this for better security she hid in the garden as she thought unknown to anyone. But my brother, sister, and myself had been watching the process with considerable curiosity, which finally reached such a pitch that there was nothing to it. We must sample a liquid that looked so good. So Jordan went to the hay loft from where a good view could be obtained all around, while myself and Sally Bruce busted ourselves in the vineyard. Presently, mother, thinking all secure, left the house with the demijohn and proceeded to hide it. Jordan from the hayloft noted that mother never left the garden until she returned to the house empty-handed, but he was unable to see the exact hiding place. All right, so that's the account on his life. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go to chapter 2. As a matter of fact, let's read down at the very bottom. It says, I suppose I acquired the taste for a strong drink on this occasion. Be that as it may, the facts remain that I could outdrink any man I ever met in the cattle country. I could drink large quantities of the fiery stuff they call whiskey on the range without it affecting me in any way. But I have never been downright drunk since that time in the sweet corn patch. Our plantation was situated in the heart of the black belt of the South, and on the plantation all around us were thousands of slaves, all engaged in garnering the dollars that kept up the so-called aristocracy of the South, and many of the proud old families owed their standing and wealth to the toil and sweat of the black man's brow, where if they had to pay the regular rate of wages to hire laborers to cultivate their large estates, their wealth would not have amounted to a third of what it was. And he goes on to say something very interesting. Wealth was created, commerce carry on, cities built, and the new world well started on the career that has led to its present greatness and standing in the world of nations. All this was accomplished by the sweat of the black man's brow. By black man, I do not mean to say only the black men, but the black woman and black child all helped to make the proud South what it was. The broths of every white man and woman with a drop of Southern blood in their veins. And what did the black man get in return? His keep and care, you say, ye gods and little fishes. Is there a man living today who will be willing to do the work performed by the slaves of that time for the same returns, his care and keep? No, my friend, we did it because we were forced to do it by the dominant race. So he's giving his account and he's telling how basically not just the South, but the United States earned its profit, earned its wealth. And the United States earned its wealth off of the sweat, the blood, of the black man, the black woman, and the child. And he goes on to say down here, some of the slaves like us had kind and indulgent masters. These were luckily indeed, as their lot was somewhat improved over their less fortunate brothers. But even their lot was the same as those of the horse or cow of the present day. They were never allowed to get anything in the nature of education, as smart Negroes were not in much demand at that time. And the reason was too apparent. Education meant the death of institution of slavery in this country, and so the slave owners took good care of their slaves, got none of it. Let me read that part again because that's important. They were never allowed to get anything in the nature of education, as smart Negroes were not in much demand at that time. The reason was too apparent. Education meant the death of the institution of slavery in this country. And so the slave owners took good care that their slaves got none of it. It said, go and see the play of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and you will see the black man's life as I saw it when a child. And Harriet Beecher Stowe, the black man's savior, well deserved the sacred shrine she holds, along with the great Lincoln in the black man's heart. And if you guys don't know about the Uncle Tom cabinets, you guys need to go read that story. Basically, Uncle Tom was depicted as the man that saved the lives of two black women who escaped from the plantation. And how did he do that? He sacrificed his own life. He sacrificed his own life. He was beaten and he was killed because he refused to tell the master where the two women had went off to. So today we use Uncle Tom as a misnomer, as a way to make fun of somebody in our race or call them weak. You know what I'm saying? Or looking at them as a coon. So Uncle Tom has been used as a way to, as a derogatory term towards somebody who's a race traitor. But the real Uncle Tom, that's not what he was. He wasn't a traitor. He was a man that sacrificed his life. That's what he did. All right. So let me go on to chapter 2. It says, war, the rebels and Yankees. I raised a regiment to fight difficulty in finding an enemy, sake freedom. He goes on to say, when I was 10 years old, the war broke out between the North and the South, and there was little else talked about among the slaves as well as the slave owners of the neighborhood. And naturally, the many different stories we heard worked us children to a high state of excitement, so much so that we wanted to go to war and fight for the Union, because among us slave children, there was no difference of opinion as to which side was right. The Union was it, and we were all Yankees. Not being able to go to war as our masters did, we concluded to play war. Accordingly, I gathered all the boys of the neighborhoods together in a regiment, which it was my intentions to divide into parties of rebels and Yankees. But in this, I met an insurmountable obstacle. Not one of the boys wanted to be a rebel. Consequently, we had to look elsewhere for an enemy to give us battle and serve as a vent for our growing enthusiasm. The next Sunday preceding the organization of our regiment, we started out over the surrounding country in quest of trouble, which we were not long in finding. As we soon ran across a nest of yellow jackets. These we proceeded to exterminate, in which we were successful after a short but destructive battle. We suffered considerably and wounded, but lost none of our soldiers. This engagement we called the capture of Fort Hell. For sometimes thereafter, we made regular raids into the surrounding country in quest of an enemy. We were eventually successful in our quest, as in quick order, we ran across and captured a company of bumblebees. This we call the Battle of the Wilderness. We Your victory over a nest of hornets we call the capture of Fort Sumter. A large nest of wasps gave us perhaps the hardest fight of our campaigning. This we ran across in the fields not far from the home. There was an unusually large number of them, and as it usually the case with these insects, they prove very vigorously. Nothing loth, however, we attacked with cheers, only to be driven back time and again, and finally we were compelled to make a very undignified retreat at full speed in the direction of home. Not to be beaten, however, we secured reinforcements and more ammunition in the shape of old rags, brooms, and so forth, and returned to the charge. Although we were driven back several times, we stayed until we won out, and the last insect lay a quivering mass on the ground. There was not one among us not wounded in some manner. As for myself, I had enough of it. My nose looked like a Dutch slipper, and it was several days before my eyes were able to perform the duties for which they were made. However, the Union force were victorious, and we were happy. Our masters told us if the soldiers caught us, they would hang us all, which had the effect of keeping most of us close around home. Master had gone to join Lee's forces, taking with him father, who was engaged in building forts, which work kept him with the Confederate Army until General Grant arrived in the country. When he was allowed to come home, from then on, Union soldiers passed the neighborhood most every day on their way south to join the fighting regiments. We soon found out that we soon found out they would not hurt us. They were the wonderment and pride of our youthful minds. So again, this is the story of Nat Love, The Life and Adventures. And this book was written in 1906. So you guys can check the book out. And also there is an audio book on YouTube. Just type in The Life and Adventures of Nat Love. When you type that up, you'll see the audio book. So it's on YouTube, and you guys can go ahead and look that up for yourself. And if you want to listen to more stories about his life and his legacy, you can do that too. So that's where you can go. But yes, as you can see, obviously he was inspired by the soldiers, by the war that was taking place between the North and the South, which inspired him to become a cowboy. But if you guys know about the cowboys and cowgirls, they were more like criminals back then. You know what I'm saying? They were more like them gangster types, like how we consider people from the streets being gangster type. That's how the cowboys was. They was like the wild gangsters or gangsters. They did a lot of criminal shit. They was main ones. If you want to be technical about it, they mainly did their gang banging shit. You know what I'm saying? So they was one of the earliest form of gang banging. Before there was a gang banging going on in America, you had the cowboys banging with other cowboys, fighting with them, having little wars, getting involved in doing criminal shit. Yeah, they were some true bad boys. So therefore, Nate Love was a bad boy that turned into a cowboy. And what inspired him was because he saw the soldiers and he saw what was going on between the North and the South. And that's what made him want to get out there and get caught up and become a cowboy and travel different places and look for trouble and stuff like that, because he thought it was fascinating. He was like, man, look at these soldiers. They out here, they got their rifles, they on the horses, they going at it with each other. This is cool. And this is something, most little boys, when they see little fights and stuff like that, they become inspired. It puts them in a challenge of their manhood. So as you can see, as I was reading, he was trying to start his own little clique, the Rebels, and he wanted to have the Yankees. But nobody really wanted to be down. They weren't trying to get down with that. So for him, he was like, okay, well, I would just spend the rest of my time chasing after insects, fighting insects off. That's what he was doing, because he ain't nobody really fight with him. So yeah, that's the story of his life. And if you guys want to check it out, you guys can look it up on YouTube, The Life and Adventures of Nat Love, or Nate Love. And also you can check out the book as well. You can probably get it on Amazon. You can probably find it in Barnes and Nobles, or if you got the website called the Scrib is an app where you can find a bunch of audiobooks, documents, and not only documents, but also PDFs you can find on that website. So it's $9.99 a month, but it's worth the money though. So whatever you can't find on the internet, you can find on there. All right. But until then, you guys, I thank you guys for tuning in, watching, for those of you that were. And make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell whenever I come on, share this channel, all that great stuff. Until next time, please be safe. And this your girl, Tiffany, and I'm logging off. So with that being said, may peace and power, elevation be to all of you. And also make sure you check me out at Clubhouse, which is Tip French. Tip French. TIPFRENCH. Check me out at the Clubhouse. All right. Because I'm on there. And also follow Team Osiris on there as well. All right. But other than that, y'all have a good one.